on grad. So this workshop will be basically focused on grad school applications, not for for other things. And please feel free to put your comments or if you have any questions in the chat box so that we can take at the end. Yeah, let's start. Okay. So what does a CV do for you? It's basically represents you, what you are. So when you submit an application to anywhere around the world, not necessarily to grad school, it's basically you, because since you are not there, your CV speaks for you. And as its meaning in the Latin says, it's a course of one's life. So it basically represents what you are, whatever you have done so far in your life regarding to particular field. And where do we need CV? So when you apply to grad schools, there are some schools.
Please kindly mute yourself. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sababai. So whenever you apply to a grad school, there are some schools that really ask you for to submit a CV. So, and emailing professors before you apply to grad school is considered one of the primary part of the applications. And when you email professors, you are supposed to attach your CV. So CV as a whole is an integral part of your applications. So here are, what is CV. I don't need to explain you what is CV all about. You must have made CV at some point of time, for sure. So here are some of the common questions, basic questions that is being asked about CV. So, people ask, how many pages of CV are you supposed to have? To be very honest, you know, if you make a very long CV, nobody has a time to read it. When you send in CV to a grad school or to a professor, they basically read it as like watching an Instagram reel or a YouTube short. Just they scroll it and see, oh, if they find out something interesting, they stop it there. Otherwise, they go on another email sent by other prospective graduate student. So please make it limited to one or maximum 2 pages, not more than that. If your CV, if you're making CV and it is coming out of to be 1.2 pages, there would be a lot of blank space that may leave an impression that you don't have much things to add. So reduce it to 1 page. It seems to be congested uh, in a sense that it seems to be filled on a particular page, so that anyone who is going through your CV must get an impression that you have a lot of things to add there. And the second common question is, which software should you use? Word or LaTeX or InDesign, Canva, and so on. So there is no standard practice. You can make whatever you want. If you open a LaTeX, they have a very lot of inbuilt files that you can also use it. Word also has a lot of templates. You can also use it. So there is no standard practice. Then is it colorful or not? Yes, you can definitely add some colors, but please don't make a rainbow out of it. Do not just use 7 different colors. Maybe you can use 1 or maximum 2. What should be a font style? It can be Times New Roman, Calibri, Georgia, or but not like Restanti Cortes. It should be like professional, that is basically used around the world. So uh, please make the things readable uh, to a person who is going through your CV. What should be a font size? You can make it 10, 11, 12. 12 means for the main heading, 11 for subheadings, and 10 for further subheadings. Or you can make it 9, 10, 11. So, but do not make it 16 points or very, very large or not very small. It should be properly readable. What should be the order of headings? It is flexible, but it should show your strength for the position that you are seeking. So, for example, if you're writing a CV for a research profile, your research things should be at the top. You should not mention at the top that you have volunteered during a pandemic somewhere. It's not gonna affect a CV. And what is the chronology, which is a very primary word in India. It should always be reverse, like you mentioned whatever you have done in the very recent, and then go back in your past. So these are some of the questions that I can think of that are possible common questions. And now, so now, uh, after discussing about what are the basic things that we are supposed to consider while writing a curriculum vitae, uh, how to let's talk about how to make a CV. And the basic example is, this is what you are. So as you are, your CV should be. So as you dress up, it should be properly aligned. Everything should be systematic. It should be proper font there. There should be a symmetry. There should be a proper spacing, and there should be no redundancy. Try to avoid as much as you can. And I'll be talking about each and every point one by one, in the further slides. So as I mentioned earlier, there is no specific format of a CV, but here is a suggestion that you guys can consider of, but it's not necessarily that you stick to that. So if you are writing a research-based CV, it should start with a header. And to note that I will be speaking about each and every point one by one in the further slides. So there should be a proper header. What it will be all about, I'll be explaining. There should be an objective or a summary of your CV, your research interest, because you are writing a research-based CV, your educational qualification, then the research intern experiences, if you have any, like if you have done any bachelor's or master thesis, if you have done any summer internships or any kind of research-based internships. Then you can also mention your work experience. If you have worked as somewhere, like as an engineer somewhere, or as whatever post you have worked on, you can also mention it's a work experience. Then you can mention your works research publications. You can mention your research publications, if any, and then technical skills, conference posters, and then at the end you can mention your courses you have done, and then mention your curricular achievements if you have any other than apart from your educational background, and then curricular and volunteer work. And in the end, you can mention your references. Similarly, if you have a non-research based applications, research experience won't count much as a part of that. So instead of research, you don't have to mention research interest if you're not writing a research-based CV. Or basically, if you're not seeking a fully funded program that is basically comes from a research-based application, you can skip your research interest, and you can be focusing on your work experiences. Like if you're applying for MBA or somewhere which is self-funded, which is going to be self-funded, you can just focus on your work experience, explaining that you have like a professional experience. And then if you have any research experience, you can also mention that, and then the rest will follow similar. So this is a possible format of a CV you can consider of, but to note again, you don't have to stick with that. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about one by one about each point. So and so this is going to be like an interactive workshop. I'll be asking questions to you. Please put your answers in your comments. I'll be asking to you what are the mistakes in the possible things that the students has done. And whatever things that I'm going to show on the screen I have taken from, these are kind of screenshots or, copied text that I have taken from the actual CVs that I have reviewed in the past, coming from different institutes, like that includes ISC Bangalore and IITs and Aligarh, of course, and different places of the world country. So these are the original things. I won't be sharing their names just for the sake of uh, privacy and confidentiality, but these are the real things. So what is header all about? So header is like top thing that you mention on your CV. It should have your name, what you are currently doing, and your contact information. And you can mention your photo, you can skip it, but if you're mentioning your photo, it should not be like your nurse class 10 standard photo. It should be like a current photo, and taking a photo is not a big deal nowadays. You don't have to go to studio. Take a mobile phone, click a nice photo with a good background, and then stick it. Do not put not like really like a bad line photo. So here is an example of someone, who has sent me his header, uh, and I have modified it to with my information for the sake of privacy. So what do you guys think? What are the mistakes in this particular header? Yeah, please feel free to put in the chat box. Yeah, and I'll be opening the chat box here too for to read myself. Yeah. Yes. There's no designation. Very good. Too much info in the third line. Excellent. Present designation is not clear. Very good. It should not be centered. Okay, I mean, it can be centered too. That's not a problem. Address is missing. Okay, very good. Very large. I mean, large is not a big deal because uh, I have basically, just zoom in to show you. Department affiliation not present. Okay, that's kind of good one. So yeah, you guys figured out pretty well. So these are the common mistakes. And also to point out that there are some more, that this LinkedIn link is pretty bad. I mean, it's see, you have mentioned the LinkedIn here, and here's also LinkedIn. So it's kind of redundancy. You don't have to mention LinkedIn twice. The link is not clickable. If someone has to check your LinkedIn profile, the link should be clickable, which is not in this case. And your present designation is not clear. And here's another example of a header someone has sent to me. Just please take a while and think about what are the mistakes in this uh, particular header. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I think okay. Yeah, let me check about it. So no need for passport number. Excellent. You don't have to mention your passport number. It's not important for a reviewer. Designation is not clear. Only city and country and is for address. Yes, this is a pretty like a huge and bad address. There are more than one email. That's very correct. Uh, Someone who is sending an email get confused, which is a primary email. So just mention only one. Everything's mixed up, two verbose. Okay. Pin code is not necessary. Of course, you don't have to mention your pin codes. And it's lots of redundancy. Yes. Proper details are pretty good. Yeah, cool. I think someone is uh, please please mute yourself. I think Tawfiq Ahmad Nazar is unmuted. So Bye, can you please mute? Yes, thank you. Okay. So these are some of the possible things. You know, so just to point it out separately. And here's a suggestion of the header that you can write off. So I write my name, what I'm actually doing, from where I'm located, my email address, my phone number, and LinkedIn in a kind of a clickable link. So if someone has to click, uh, the person can change your LinkedIn. This is one possible header, which I really like it. uh, it has not much information. You can expand a little bit to make it further better. This just don't go on this huge box. This is just for clarity. It's not like a page size. And then here is one more where you can mention what you have done. You are coming from Department of Physics, your email. Here's your LinkedIn. And LinkedIn can be better too. You don't have to use a LinkedIn before. There are options in a LinkedIn where you can just modify it, and you can mention the contact, and you can mention like a little address which is readable. It should not be like village and post. Just mention it simple one. Just to point it out some more things, if you're mentioning your LinkedIn or your website, your GitHub, it should be properly updated. I still remember a case where someone mentioned about blogs that person used to write, and that blog was not updated from last 2 years. So it may leave an impression on a reviewer that you are not active on the things. So if it's not active, either don't mention, and if you're mentioning it, make sure to update it. If you're mentioning LinkedIn, it should have the same information maybe more, but it should not have a less information than your CV is. And then, as someone pointed out, there should not be too much emails. Your address should be simple, and your LinkedIn should be simple and clean. Okay, so I think this is mostly about header. Now let's talk about professional summary and objective. So here's an example of a professional summary. It's basically a short description of your qualifications that consider two important parts: that why are you good fit for a particular role that you're applying to, and that can include your achievements, your experience, education, and skills that are relevant to the particular role. For example, that someone can mention about psychology, that someone has done a psychology master's with some 2 years of experience, research experience, working on what particular field, like child and cultural psychology in this case. This is one example, and then you can mention that you have like passionate for research. You can add more, but it should not be too much. And here's an objective. You can just write one or other thing. It's like not like important which you're gonna write. So objective basically briefly communicate what job or industry you are seeking in and the skills that you want to gain. So objective is kind of a purpose of mainly focusing on purpose of writing this CV, and somebody explains what you actually are. So you can, like for example, for the objective, someone is writing that the person is looking for a PhD position in some research group, and why, to gain some independent scientific thinking and other things. And one thing, these things are very redundant. Everyone copies it. Maybe I have copied it too from somewhere when I was writing it first. So try to add some things of your own, because if someone is reviewing up CVs for a while, the person will definitely know what people usually write. And if the person finds out to just copying things, it won't leave a good impression. So maybe use like just write things of your own. Try to add more words, or reduce the words, or just change it. It should not be like exactly copied. And this is the one of the most copied things that I usually review every year. Yeah, let's talk about area of research interest. It's not for people or students who are applying for non-masters positions. So here, area of research interest is very important if someone is applying for a PhD program or a master's based on research. So you have to mention in what fields you want to work on. For example, here is an example of someone mentioning uh, for a PhD in some particular field, and this student is from MSc Industrial Chemistry, and I think from a league. And this person mentioned this organic inorganic synthesis, nanotechnology, and industrial chemistry. And see, this person comes from industrial chemistry itself, and this person research interest is industrial chemistry as a whole, uh, which should not be the case. It's too broad actually. And then there comes like extragalactic astronomy, complex stellar object. This is like from someone from IIT Madras. Someone sent to me to review, and but this is too focused. If you apply to a grad school and your research interest is too focused, and even if your CV gets shortlisted for final review, your CV would be sent to the particular professor who works in this particular field and would be asked that, do you have a position in the coming years? And if the professor said no, there are less chances, your your profile won't be shortlisted finally, because the department knows that you are not gonna stay here, or even if you get an admit, you are not gonna work here. So it should not be too focused. It should not be. Then the third one is like someone sent me corporate and psychology. These are two mutually irrelevant fields. So it should not be mutually relevant to what you are writing. And whenever you email professors, try to edit it, try to change it accordingly. It should not be always the same. And also this is like one of the interesting one that I got long years back, that someone wants to work in astronomy and also mention astrology, which is of course could be. So can someone can you guys think of why this is not a good version uh, of mentioning a research interest? Can someone explain to me, or maybe just put your views in the chat? In the chat, yeah, please. I'll be looking. Okay, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for adding it. So can someone think about why astrology mentioning astrology is not a good thing when you're applying for research? Okay, so just to say that because astrology is not considered to be like a uh, good field, particularly in physics, so you don't have to mention. But if you're working in history of astrology, that can be other thing, but not definitely in sciences. Uh, let's talk about education qualifications, or people also call it academic details. You can call it with any name you want. So you have to mention your all your degrees. That can also include your high school, which is standard in India, and intermediate, which is 12th standard. People call it plus two, and with different names. So here is an example of someone sent me. I just simply copied exactly with changing some information. So just think about it, and and tell me what do you think, what are the mistakes in this particular thing. Yes, please. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So you guys mentioned that we remove plus two and give details on your masters and bachelors. That's pretty good. CGPA skills should be mentioned. Very good. Where is AMU? Yeah, you can also mention that that's a legal one. These are spelling mistakes. Okay, the different way of writing years is different. Very good. I think writing years is fine, but you can improve it. Good. Okay, yeah, you guys pretty done a good job. So here is one more before I explain you the things. What do you think about the mistakes in this particular sector? Yes, spacing. Okay, spacing is pretty good. Yes, is it too much spacing in this particular part? GPA conversion is university specific. Yes, that's also absolutely correct. You know, yeah, if you have like a CGPA in India, just mention it in your CVs. You don't have to convert it all the times. If GPA is too low, you don't have to mention it. That's like a very good idea, very good point. That if it is very low, just skip it. Just avoid it. Don't mention it because it's gonna leave a very bad impression. And yeah, you can mention Aligarh in India. Yeah, I mean, instead of you can mention Aligarh in India, or here is kind of inconsistency. Someone has mentioned Aligarh India, and here it's simply India. So either just write Aligarh India or like India. Just be consistent. Months, you don't have to mention months. That's also good, very good point. What is a benchmark of for low CGPA? It's not like a benchmark specifically, like if you have like 3.4 or 3.5 GP, I think it's good to mention. Like if you have like CGPA 8, I think it's good to mention. And then there is one more that somebody has mentioned, which is you okay. So let me explain you things. So here is inconsistency. Uh, uh, in bachelor's and master's, someone has uh, someone has there is apostrophe s, there is not here. And one important thing is that if you mention intermediate or plus two, if you're sending your CV in Europe or US, people have no idea what this intermediate means. We call it high school in US, or you can check if you're applying in a particular country like Germany or like France or wherever you're applying, you can just write accordingly. So that people who are reading it, they don't have to go on internet and check for it. It should be very readable and clear to them. Because if they feel any kind of issues in reading your CV, they may just close it and go on the other things. And as someone pointed out, you have mentioned percentage science here and you're mentioning CGPA, which is inconsistent. It's not symmetric. And then on this particular part, the main focus are coming on dates, you know. So like if any one of you knows about art, there always a particular part in every art piece where people focus on. And that's like a, like a that's called center of the art. Similarly, this section is like, it's like, there are too much space there, and it seems to be that you're focusing on dates. But though the important things are your uh, are your degrees. And similarly here, you have mentioned Aligarh at the top, where your primary things are your degrees. So it should be top. Dates are matching with that. It's not clear what they mean. CGPAs is not properly mentioned. And also Uttar Pradesh, it's definitely an unknown place for people in the US or Europe. I mean, there would be like, 90% chances that people have no idea. So always do not mention those things. A reviewer won't have any idea what these things are all about. So here is an example of, kind of suggestions, like, this one thing. You can mention your degrees. You can mention year of passings. You can mention institution and board. Uh, just to note again, if you are mentioning intermediate, please do not mention a school name. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows, what it's all about. So simply mention like a state board. And if you're coming from CBSE board or a legal board or, UP board, just mention about it. Or like, for example, if you're mentioning state board, try to write the full forms or in a way that anyone can understand it. Like, and I mentioned like CGPA, so 8.8 out of 10.0, 72.75 out of this number. These are like random numbers. I just use it. So you can mention it. So when you convert percentage into CGPA, then you have to write in CV. I mean, you don't have to convert as it is, just mention whatever your degree basically gives about. Or if you want, you can also make them consistent. Here is one more, which is pretty much good. You can mention what degree you get, then CGPA. You can mention the university. You don't have to. I mean, you can skip like mention a legal too, if you think that it's getting redundant. But that's not a big deal. And always try to mention the dates at the right corner so that it's trying to be clear. And the one more important thing, that you can also mention achievements if you have any during your degree. Like for example, if you have won a gold medal for high score in some of the batch, people also mention if they have scored like some A's, in how many subjects, or if you were a captain, or if you are like doing something extraordinary, or like something very interesting a person should know about in that particular degree. So that was an example about education qualifications. Let's go to research experience. So here in this section, you can mention about your bachelor's and master thesis and your research internships, and whatever kind of research experiences you have. You can all mentions here, all of them. And this is a very important part, or I would say the most important part for an application for a CV that is research based. For example, this is like, somebody mentioned it, like, this like research topic and MS thesis dates under the supervision of this professor from mechanical engineering, MU. So can you guys think of what are the possible mistakes in this particular part? And I'm sorry, I think I'll be missing some of your comments in the chat. So please feel free to ask in the end so that I can answer all of them. Doing two things at one point, can be a little tough. So yes, there are alignment mistakes. Yes, there can be alignment mistakes. Too much. I use action verbs. That's pretty good. We have to use action verbs. Excellent. There are alignment issues. There are no focal point. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah. So let me explain to you. One thing, as somebody pointed out, always choose action verbs. See, I did this, I did this, I did this. It's very repetitive. So you can simply remove this "is." Always use action verbs. For example, here is a better one. Like, you can just bold your headings, make it a little a different font size, maybe like at 12, and the other things are at 11, so that it highlights it. You write your master thesis. Who is your advisor? You don't have to write supervision of. If you simply write advisor, from where the advisor comes, uh, and it's like a particular date. You don't have to. Date can be have a different format, but that's like a better one. And you don't have to mention 6 points. I think maximum is, I would say, like do like 3 or 4. I think three is pretty one. See here I used action verbs: calculated, evaluated, derived, or you can do of your own. And try to, if you're writing this experience, it should be, these points should be very technical. Should not be like, should not be like in a common local dialect. And then important thing is, one more important thing is that if you are you can always mention the links. If you have any thesis, put them on Google Drive, add the links there. And that link should be openable. It should not be the case that if someone clicks, you get an email, then you approve it. It should not be the case. It should be like an open accessible link. And that's makes the things readable. If someone is interested in your thesis, the person can click on it and can go into detail, and that would increase your chance of getting selected. And you can, if someone is working with is applying for non-thesis masters, that person can replace this part with the work experiences, or first put work experience and then this experience. And I'll be explaining work experience at the end of the slide. And now how to mention research publications. It's again for uh, I mean it's for both of them, for funded and non-funded research or non-research with masters. But research people should basically work about it. Okay. And yeah, thank you so much for adding action verbs. Okay. You don't have to worry first if you have nothing here. Having no research publication is a very common thing. The degrees in India till your masters are not research based, unlike US and Europe, so you don't have to worry about it. Here is an example of someone mentioned their research experiences. Mention the names first, and so this is a better one. I think you just mention the name of the publication, and instead of mentioning everything, I simply put the link uh, of the paper. So if someone clicks it, the person can go to that particular link and just put a date, and then put the journal of education, journal in which this paper is published. You don't have, I mean, you don't have necessarily put all the names. You just, it's your CV, so you should have your own names. Here's another example that these are like from the real cases that somebody put it. Uh, put like ISBN numbers, or like put publishing or which pages and this and that. You don't have to do that. Just simply put the title of the paper, the link, just click on that, and in what proceeding or what journal this paper has been published, and the year. Of course, you don't have to put like specific dates like May 13 2022. You don't have to do that. Just put the year. And if you have a lot of publications, do not mention it here. You can mention only an important one. And if you have any Google Scholar or ORCID, you can also mention here. But if you have a lot of publications, you can make them put them at the end of your CV as like an appendix. And as I mentioned before, please do not mention an impact factor. It's not gonna not gonna leave a good impression. It's making the things more difficult to read. Make sure to add links, I just said. And why are you putting an ISBN? Nobody's interested in knowing about it. It's simply a redundant information. So this is about research publication. Let's go to technical skills. So you're supposed to mention your only relevant technical skills, which can be technical, like coding, experimental, like what are the instruments, characterization techniques, statistics, and so on. Yeah, I'm supposed to have what I want, what I need. So only mention those things which are relevant. If you know dance, do not mention if you're applying for a computer science position. Here's an example of someone sent to me. Can you guys think of what are the mistakes in this particular part? Uh, can someone think of what are the mistakes in this particular section? What are the possible mistakes? And to add again, I may also have mistakes in what recommendations I am giving to you, but so please feel free to point out if you think so. I'll be happy to improve too. But yeah, like my job is it's basically explaining you what are the better things that I usually think of. Yeah, NewPy is not a software. Yes, I mean Yeah, actually NumPy is not a software exactly. It's a library in Python. So you just do not mention it. Remove OS bundle office. You don't have to mention uh, all the offices. Microsoft Office is sufficient instead of writing different components of it. Too much software to explain. Yes, these are like software packages. Yes, very good. Don't have to mention all of them. Mention some of them. Yeah, so pretty good. You guys are doing a good job. Next, pointing out the things. C++. Yeah, I mean, yeah, C plus. If you're, it's not C plus, C plus plus. Placing in different lines. Very good. So here is example. I write uh, programming languages, which is either they are like C. It should be C plus plus. I mean, I think I also miss adding a plus there. Thank you for pointing out. C plus plus and Python, and these are like astronomical tools and software. Yeah, you're like NumPy is a library, so but you can mention software as a software packages. I missed the package word here. And one also thing to notice, like yeah, I'll be explaining more things. So you don't have to mention operating systems unless it is not necessary. Like you don't have to mention that Windows. Windows, everyone knows Windows. But if it is important for you, like if you're applying for computer science and writing Linux is a primary thing, so then you can mention. This is not very clearly readable, and also someone has written LaTeX. LaTeX is not written like that. LaTeX is written like that. Similarly for other things. I think someone is unmuted. Please mute yourself so that uh, we can smoothly run the workshop. Thank you. Yeah. So whatever the way the name is written, please respect it and write in a very similar way. And this is an example, one of my favorite of from a CV that someone sent to me. Can you guys think of what are the mistakes in writing communication apps? And put your comments in the chat box. Why do we need to mention it? Yes.
Recording in progress.
So yes, I mean, you don't have to mention these things at all in your applications. This is not like not at all an important thing to mention. Everyone knows Zoom and Google Meet or Skype. Then somebody can ask about mentioning WhatsApp or like any of the social media that's required. So you don't have to mention all those things. Yeah, let's move forward. Uh, how do you mention conferences, posters, and other things uh, in your applications? So if you have attended some conference, just mention the name of the conference, the place, and the year. And if you have presented some paper, please make sure to mention it, like the paper title, and if you have won some award. Okay, I think so. Okay. And similarly, you can mention the title, a talk, if you're doing some talk or posters or webinars and workshops. So just be clear, it should not be redundant information. Just mention what is an important things. If there are links, mention them. Like if you have given a talk, if you have, giving a webinar and it's on the internet, you can also mention those links. Yeah. So yeah. And then there's one more important section of the CV, which a lot of students really miss, is relevant courses undertaken, which means what are the relevant courses you have related to your applications. So which means that, in order to show that if you're applying for some particular field, uh, uh, whether you have done the relevant courses or not, that shows that you have required a prerequisite skills for a particular applications. But to notice, you don't have to mention all the courses. Please distinguish between undergrad and master courses that you have done, or whatever degrees you have. And you can also mention your online courses, maybe as a separate heading like online courses. And and please do not mention all the courses that I have just said. So here is an example you can mention now. I just distinguish between general papers, special papers, lab courses, but you don't have to mention all of the courses. I mean, I did like, these are from my own master's degree, but I did like a lot of other courses, but I just picked the special one and apply related to theoretical physics that I work on. I did not mention, these, I think this is a pretty good number. Uh, and then there's a work experience, which I think is important for people who are applying for like MBAs and like similar positions. For example, you can also mention if you have done teachings, your working industries, if you're working as a teaching assistant, or you're giving home tuitions. You can definitely mention them, but it should not be like, it should not be very detailed if you're writing a research CV. For example, like teaching physics to high school, write a date, and if you have awarded any special thing, please make sure to mention them. Which is like important thing, will highlight that you are doing a good job in a particular work. You can also mention, like you're teaching a math in after school program to high school students. Important thing that if you are right like a coaching, like I'm teaching in a coaching is not a common word in US, like what after school program is. So you can just, if you're writing some word and you think that this is not a good word in the US or Europe, please check on internet and replace them so that everyone can read it. You can write tutoring history in Czech, a platform to help students in learning. People really, mention like a very detail that, oh, this is an organization, it's a US-based organization, do this, 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 which is not a good case because you are not explaining about Czech, you're writing about yourself. Here's an example of the work experiences that, I took it from internet. So like somebody write the company that you are working in, what is your post, and here are some of the 4 bullet points. You can also reduce it to 3, and the date at the end. Here are we're almost about to finish. So here is about curricular and extracurricular activities. This is also an important part of your applications. So these are like co-curricular activities, and like volunteering in a college event. If you're holding some post in a club, co-curricular means related to your curriculum. So if you're working as a volunteer somewhere, holding some post in a club, you have got some awards, got some scholarships, won some debate quiz prizes, which is relevant to your curriculum or enter exams qualified. You can definitely mention them. And if you're mentioning exams qualified, you're applying to US, people may have no idea what is GATE all about, what is NET, JRF, So whenever you're writing them, please try to be as clear as possible of someone who has no idea about those parts. Then there comes extracurricular activities which are not related to your curriculum. For example, you are volunteer for some NGO. You are playing sports. You won some prize in music and dance, and you have some position of responsibilities. The important thing is that volunteer work is an integral part of an applications. People really consider you a good candidate if you have a good volunteer work. Make sure to mention them if you have some, but please do not mention too much of the things. And someone is writing that, is it countable to add tuitions teaching? Yes, you can definitely add them, but try to write in a better way that it seems that you have some kind of teaching experience. For example, when you apply to a grad school in US, for example, you're applying for a PhD, you have to do a TA as an integral part of your of your degree. So if a reviewer finds that you have a previous teaching experiences, it may count as an additional thing for your applications. So yes, you can add them, but try to be in a very clear way. Is there a difference in writing CV for a grad and postdoc? Yes, of course. Postdoc may have, have a PhD, have more publications, and when you're postdoc, it's basically very research based. So please focus on that. Then here are some examples of the curricular and extracurricular activities that someone has sent to me. I want you to think for a while and see what are the possible mistakes in all of those bullet points. And please put in the chat box. Do you use mnemonics? I mean, that's not a mnemonic, but I would call it short form. No idea what gate or AIR is. Very good. People have no idea what gate actually means or what is AIR. It's all India rank, but people in US or Europe have no idea what it is. It's not relevant to mention class 6 achievement. Very good. You don't have to mention your class 6 achievement. You're applying, not to a grad school. Amount of money was not required. You don't have to mention it unless you have applied for some research grant and you have achieved it. I think someone is unmuted. Please, please mute yourself. And important information must be focused because small achievements are more. Very good. This is not a written proper way. Yes, class representative. You don't have to mention class representative. So, you don't have to mention all of the things. Like as somebody pointed out, you don't have to mention 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees. You don't have to mention Chief Minister of Kerala. It's not gonna, count any. Make sure to mention the award that you have received. You don't have to mention from 6th class. This is like, people in US have no idea what does it mean. You don't have to mention the price here. Just simply mention that you have won some merit means scholarship. But instead of mentioning Uttar Pradesh government, you can also mention Government of India. You don't have to be like very specific. But if someone asks you, you can explain it later, but you don't have to mention it specifically. You don't have to mention you got first in high school. See, this is like important thing that if you have 3 posts in a particular scientific society, show it that you're progressing a lot. You can mention like I was a treasurer, and then like arrow vice president or like a arrow like a president. Show it as like you are going up in a particular society. I think someone is still unmuted. Sababai, please, can you please take care of it? I think.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. And then, you don't have to mention what are the games and sports you're interested. You don't have to mention them. And then here are personal details. It's an optional part. Someone mention it, someone not. Like you can mention a nationality. You can mention the language known. Hindi and English, you can definitely mention it. You don't have to, and you can also mention like if you know like German, you're applying for Germany, German, you can mention like German, put in a bracket like intermediate or whatever level it is. That may help you. But if you're applying to US, you don't have to mention, it's not necessary to mention that English. I think it's like a normal thing. Like some people also prefer to mention date of birth. You can definitely be. And somebody mentioned Uttar Pradesh should be a state government. Yes, that's also a better way. Instead of mentioning Uttar Pradesh, mention state government. Some people also mention here, like marital status or like other things, or like a gender. It's like a very optional thing. You don't have to mention it. It's up to you if you want to put it. This is basically a part that help you to fill the space if there's anyone in your CV. And if you have any of the, then at the end we mention the references. So mention only two, three advisors. Don't mention 10 of the advisors. Don't mention 10 of them. Whenever, so I think it's like a simple way. Just mention the professor name, from which department it comes from, university, and email. Do not mention personal emails. It simply leaves kind of, kind of effectiveness or kind of credence of mentioning a particular recommender for you. Always try to use school email unless there is no other option available. So this is like, kind of a whole format of CV step by step. And at the end, there are like some choti magar moti baate that you guys should know about. So here are some of them. Chat GPT is a big thing nowadays. It's like a huge debate going on. Like a lot of people are writing papers and articles, and like a lot of interviews are on internet. But I personally believe that you can use it to improve your sentences. Just do not ask Chat GPT that, hey, can you write a CV for me? Can you write this paragraph? Or can you write this line? Write a line of your own. Go to Chat GPT and say, hey Chat GPT, can you improve this sentence for me? And then you can use that sentence. Make sure to read it, because sometimes there are technical mistakes in that. Make sure to proofread it before you copy it. So use it to improve your sentence. Do not simply use it to just write things for you. Always, if you're using bullet points, be consistent. Like, I've been using the same dots throughout. Do not, be use like a proper dots. Make sure to check the grammar. It's a very important thing. There are a lot of free software, you can use them. If you're mentioning gender and nationality, you can mention them in headings, personal details. It's an optional thing, you don't have to mention it. If you're mentioning any short forms or abbreviation, as somebody mentioned, it should be clear as possible. JRF is not a known thing. EIR is not a known thing. Parents name, please do not mention it, your parents name. I have come across some of the applications where people do it. Do not do that. It's not like a marriage biodata. If you're sending CV somewhere, always do in a PDF format, because if you do in Word is very infamous to just to lose the format. So please send in a PDF format. That is what PDF format is made for. Date format. In Indian system, we first mention the date and then month and year. But in US system, we do in the other way. At first, we mention the month and date and year. So you don't have to mention these specific dates. Nobody's interested in that. You can simply mention the months, year, and if even the month is not important, you can also skip that. And you can mention the date like that. You don't have to mention the whole January, whole August. If the short form is sufficient to convey the information, just skip it. Just mention it. You don't have to mention the hobbies. No need to mention them. Like reading books. Everyone has a hobby of reading books, though nobody read it. Everyone has a habit of listening music, traveling. You don't have to mention it. People really did it, uh, in the CVs I reviewed before. So these are from the real cases. So you don't have to mention them unless you find it very, focus to a particular professor. Like, for example, you check the profile of a professor and he's interested in hiking, and he's putting a lot of videos or photos of hiking on like in social media, other things. Then you may think of mentioning it, just to influence a professor, but otherwise not. There's like a common myth that should we put dots before the sentence or not. So if it is a kind of a sentence like this, put a dot. If it is kind of an example, you don't have to put a dot. So if it's like a sentence, then put a dot. And also one important thing, that when you send your CV, it should be properly named, like at a CV underscore Sachin Gupta. This is good thing. If like someone downloaded it, it would be easier for the person to search also. But do not like final CV, final 2 CV, CVVV3 or 4 final CV, or like with some weird names, of course. So here's a very short summary. The order of the topics in a CV is very format. And the CV format should be flexible, but make it as per as the position that you're seeking to. Elaborate on your accomplishment and skills within categories. It should be very much focused to where you're applying to. Items should be chronologically mentioned, the most recent appearing first, and then you go back. Mention your certifications, your license, workshops, training languages, book reviews. Make sure to mention them. You can use additional headings to just separate them. Important thing is present them in an easily accessible and attractive style. Whomsoever is reading it should not get stuck, should not get confused. The person won't have any time to search things for you on your CV unless you're a big guy. It should be very easily readable. And also one of the important thing is that some of the schools suggest the particular format they are seeking applications, they're seeking CV2 or any of the document that also can also include like SOP. Before you submit an application to a school, check with that school, search that whether they have some recommendation for a format of a CV. If yes, change your CV accordingly. There are some people who think that you are far better or your CV is far better than the recommendation,
मैं
it does
फ्लाइट
not.
से 2-3 बार आया हूँ, ठीक है, और ट्रेन से भी आया हूँ, तो
I think
दोनों का ही एक्सपीरियंस है।
uh,
अच्छा,
I think Atif Anwar is unmuted. Atif, can you please mute yourself?
yeah, I
please.
just
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And one last step, write your CV, right? Write your CV, send to your SHGSA mentors, to your friends, to your seniors for review, correct them, resend them, correct them, take their feedbacks until you get frustrated. But take a time, if you can start now, start it now. It really takes a time to get a better one. Maybe you can take like 2 weeks or 1 week or like a month, but it would be like one of the best CV that you've ever made. And yeah, I mean, it may take 4 hours or 10 hours, but it's a very important thing representing you. It's kind of your representative in a grad school application. So it should be the best one. Spend your time. It's going to change your life. Thank you. And feel free to ask questions. Yeah. And before that, here is an example of the CV, that I made it. It's not an updated one, but it's kind of an example that, I made it. I put my name and everything. Like you can see, it's like, I just changed some data, for the sake of privacy, but I just mentioned my school, year of passing, my institutions, mention various experiences with 3 bullet points everywhere. Should be consistent. Technical skills, uh, relevant course undertaken, definitely not much. Teaching experience, a book written, and some of the things. So I just make it of a 1 page. You can make it like a bigger one, of course, like of 2 pages one. I just remove a lot of the things, but yeah, you can mention that. So thank you everyone, and yeah, feel free to ask if you have any questions.